So let's dive in. Um, what I'd love to do is just start with the why. And I'd love to hear both from Keri um, and from Tara. Like, well, what made your company decide to do this in the first place? What was the driver for you?
Sure, I can start us off. So, an employee relief fund was chosen for Ocean Spray to support our team members' financial well-being because we do really believe in supporting our team members in life's difficult moments, right? We already have a culture of giving here at Ocean Spray. We're very philanthropic. We have a workplace giving program through our 401k administrator. We offer volunteering programs. So the thought of adding an employee relief fund, we wanted to pursue that because then it could help, demonstrate our compassion for our team members while hopefully increasing their productivity and building that sense of community. And at Ocean Spray, we do offer a robust benefits package that complements the total well-being of our team members and their families, from physical wellness to mental to financial to work-life balance, et cetera. But we did find that there was a little bit of a gap on the financial side. So in a way, working with Canary was an ability to really fill that gap. So we decided to implement it. And we recognize that sometimes team members need an extra hand financially. Life can throw unexpected or unusual events that make it difficult to afford, basic living expenses, an example. So again, like I said, we wanted to make sure that we had something to fill that void while also setting ourselves apart from competitors. Um, and I'm proud to say at Ocean Spray, we always try to make sure our mission and our values align. And we pride ourselves in offering benefits that wholly support team members and their families, like I mentioned. So the goals for us in adding an employee relief fund was to, like I said, demonstrate that compassion, build that sense of community, increase productivity, increase employee engagement, help with retention, and then also support employees where they are. We have a diverse workforce. We have corporate salaried team members, we have hourly and salary team members out in our plants, and everybody's in a different stage in life and financially, their stories are different from the next person that they're working alongside. So we wanted to find a way to, like I said, fill that gap where we felt like we could provide something extra that a lot of organizations potentially don't have. So that's kind of the why behind Ocean Spray wanted to pursue an employee relief fund.
That's awesome. You said so much there that I want to ask a follow-up question about. So I'm so excited to dig in. Before we go there, I'd love to hear how Boston Beer thought about this. Like, what
Yeah,
was your
so
why?
we were pretty similar. And we also have the philanthropic approach to everything. But really what kind of brought this to light for us was we wanted to find a way to really support our coworkers throughout the entire organization. What we had found prior to this program was that there was pockets of coworkers helping other coworkers out when times were tough, but that wasn't circulating throughout the entire organization, nor was it really leading up to the leadership to make the company aware that it was happening, so that the company could help. So this was a way for us to be able to do that. It was a way for the company to support the entire coworker population, for other coworkers to help each other out.
Mm.
And we just thought that it was a nice, easy way to be able to implement that for everybody.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, did you see, I'm curious what you saw as the gaps in that informal approach, right? If people were helping each other, that actually gets you a decent way through, but there's some challenges with it too, right? So how did you all think about that? And
Yeah, the main challenge we saw was that, like, for example, if there was a situation in one of our locations, then they were kind of filtering that out to the people at that location, but it wasn't spreading to the rest of the
yeah,
organization. And if it did reach a part of the other organization, then there might have been somebody who was like, hey, I'd really like to help out in that, but they didn't know about it. So that was kind of the need that we saw that we wanted to fill.
yeah. God, I love the way you put that. Because sometimes what I've heard from companies about that is a risk-based analysis, like the downside of a GoFundMe, right? Which has some challenges if you have a non-solicitation policy, or if there's a worry that some people will get help and other people won't get help, and it'll feel unequitable. But you framed it, and those are true and really important, and like risk management really matters. but you framed it in the positive. Like we can help more people, and more people can get help from each other if we do this across the company. I just think that's so cool. Yeah, it's really fun to hear. So then, okay, once you guys had both your companies had said, yes, we're going to do this. Why not just do it in-house? And why work with a third party? You both have strong teams, capacity to take on a lot, I'm sure. What drove that decision?
I can start on that
Yeah,
one.
you want to start, Tara? Great.
Yeah. So our team, from a total rewards perspective, we're really lean. And so thinking about how we would even manage all of those different requests coming in was daunting. On top of that, we're not real familiar with like the IRS rules and all of the regulations around that. So we really felt like having a TPA would be the best way to manage all of that. The other thing is, just having that confidentiality there, being able to know that I think what I would say is if we were managing the requests in-house, then we kind of have a little bit more interaction with the coworkers, and we might feel the need to maybe vary the amount of the grant, whatever you want to call, to different people, just because of the different situations or because how that person was brought up to us. And that leads to a little bit of unfairness. So what I like about having the TP is, you guys are following a set of rules. It's aligned across everybody that is requesting the grant. And it's taking us completely out of the equation. So people have that confidentiality and they aren't, relating it to the work experience.
Yeah, super interesting. Keri, what would you add to that? And then Sara, I want to bring you into this as the day-to-day manager of how it works now, right? So there was this decision we should work with a third party. So curious, Keri, how you guys process that decision, and then today, how's that functioning for you?
Yeah, so Tara hit a lot of the same points that I wanted to bring up. First and foremost, we wanted to provide privacy to our team members, as we know that sometimes financial hardships can be a very sensitive and uncomfortable thing to speak about to, your HR team, as an example. So we thought that, having an objective third party would be the best way to go about it, to review, conduct any follow-ups, gather that documentation, approve grants, be the point of contact for questions. That was definitely important to us. And similar to Tara, we're a very lean team on the total reward side. So although Ocean Spray is a big name, we're kind of a small organization. So the administrative burden, if we were to manage it in-house, just also seems kind of daunting to us as well. And then also, like Tara had mentioned as well, the risk that you could be taking on with, the IRS regulations. And we wanted to just minimize that risk and the legal ramifications. So that's why we decided, Ocean Spray is not going to be the one to administer this. We're best putting these off to the experts that know all of the compliance side, and again, provide that third party objective view, so that we weren't, favoritism never came in, it was all done blindly. So yeah, so that's kind of why we decided to go that route.
Yeah. And Sara, how does it function for you all today as you think about what's the value that this service provides for the HR team, which is really a core part of who we think of as the client?
Yeah, no, I see that the greatest value is truly being a place for our employees to go when they're facing some sort of dire financial circumstances. Our employees, our HR, specifically our HR department, we arm them with all the resources and information. We have many places to go, whether it's a quick poster, give us a quick email, or even our HR associates that are, here in the corporate offices or in our field. They have access to these resources to share with our employees. So they're not just providing that empathetic ear, they're actually providing a resource to help.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I mean, one of the things, Keri, you said at the outset is that there was this gap that your employees had on the financial side, right? And I see everybody nodding. Like, I think this is one of the core issues that comes up is that especially companies who have lots of hourly workers, like we know that they often are living paycheck to paycheck. They often are, even if they are saving, that savings may not be enough to cover it when they come up with an emergency. Or even if they are saving, they may have used it for their savings for some emergency in the past. So there's these moments where people really have a gap. You know, you both, like both of your companies, like really have to think about those hourly workers, and then you have these salaried workers, right, who have a very different benefits need, right? So I'm curious to hear you talk about how you weigh. I mean, that's just probably an ongoing issue that you weigh, but how you weigh that and how you thought about that in this context.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, Ocean Spray does have a mixed population across the country, salaried, hourly team members, and the financial needs can vary greatly from one teammate to the next. And as you said, the statistics are pretty staggering. Like you said, 63% Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and 40% can't afford a $400 emergency expense. Like, that is mind blowing, and it's the reality for so many people. And at Ocean Spray, we were noticing that a lot of hourly team members in particular were taking loans against their 401k, taking out withdrawals, and that really kind of perked up our ears to be like, we need to get to the root of the problem. They were paying it off, and then once the payoff, after 2 weeks, they could open another one or take out another loan. And that's what they were doing. So we're like, we need to find a solution and get to that root as opposed to just covering it with a Band-Aid. So that was definitely something that we had to weigh. So we were hoping with the implementation of this employer relief fund that over time we see less of that activity. We see more, saving for your future or just getting yourself into a better financial spot presently. Sometimes you can only figure out what you're doing tomorrow or today. You can't really look so far in the future, but we're hope that these baby steps can help team members really view long term, and making sure that they're making smart financial decisions. And we thought this was a really great stepping stone to really kind of shift that mindset a little bit. Because we know hardships can pop up at the drop of a hat. Not to get personal, but my in-laws just suffered a house fire a couple weeks ago, and it's not something anybody ever prepared for, right? So understanding that team members can go through something, and financially really suffer from that, we need to make sure that we are being equitable across the board. So this is open to salaried team members. I don't mean to just talk about the hourly workforce, but across the board. We also had a similar situation back a couple years ago where there was a GoFundMe circulating before we had Canary, and we thought this was a great opportunity to implement something like this because then it makes it fair across the board and it's more streamlined. So hopefully, with the implementation of this, team members can really focus on recovering financially and reduce that absenteeism, that financial stress, and increase that productivity. So yeah, it can be difficult with the difference in populations, but we thought Canary was, a great solution. So that's kind of how Ocean Spray handled that.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about this as a program that is universal, even though like our assumption is it's going to get used mostly by lower paid folks. Emergencies can affect us all, and there's something so heartwarming and good for the company's culture if it's, well, this is how we help anybody who has a crisis. Sara, how did you all think about this, sort of bifurcation of benefits needs that shows up sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, just like Keri mentioned, our population is exactly the same. We have a wide range of different types of coworkers across the organization, from the salespeople to the hourly workforce. We even have a hospitality branch too, which is mostly our part-time coworkers. And what I love about this program is it's open to both our full-time and our part-time coworkers. And I think those part-time coworkers get hit even harder sometimes because, they might not have a full paycheck every week, and they're probably, like you mentioned, living paycheck to paycheck. What I also really enjoy about this program is they have access to the funds. Obviously, they have to provide the requirements to be able to get access to the funds, but they have immediate access to the funds and it's tax-free to them, which I think is a huge advantage over the GoFundMes, because in the GoFundMe situation, which we had happening exactly the same way that Keri mentioned prior to implementing the program, but somebody has to actually take the action to set that GoFundMe up for them. And then you have to get the funds built into it, which takes time. And then there's also tax implications to getting the money out of it too. So I think it's great that, we have this account built up, we have the fund built up. So when that emergency arises, all the people have to do is provide the documentation that's required and they get the access to the grant right away.
Yeah, that's pretty, thanks for sharing that piece of it. That the tax treatment, it's funny how much we just all like if something's tax advantaged, right? Like, I mean, there's an actual financial reason to like it, in that the individual receives the full amount of the money is donated versus whatever, whatever reduction they would otherwise have in terms of paying taxes. But it also just tends to motivate people to give, like knowing this is something that's tax advantaged. And I think, I don't know, I've just always found that interesting. There's just something innate where we're like, oh, good, that's somehow more efficient. Um, um, I am, and I'm curious, how you think about funding this, and how you think about encouraging other teammates to donate into the fund, right? So, Tara, I know Boston Beer is really, I don't even know, like, you've really made this a fun project. And I'm super interested to hear more about it, and have other folks on the call hear more about how you've thought about that piece of the engagement with this, because it's not only receiving funds, it's also the ability to give in to the fund.
Yeah. Yeah, when we launched the program back in 21, we had a great immediate coworker response, because I think whenever you launch something that's new, everybody kind of like, they hear about it, they want to give to it. But then what we find, because we also have a very robust benefits package, and it's hard sometimes to pick and choose which benefit you really need to keep on the forefront mind for coworkers. So what we did to try to keep the fund there in the front of people's minds was we incorporated it into our open enrollment elections. We think that it also drove participation and people donating, because they're sitting there, planning out their next year of benefits, right? And they can see how much is going to be coming out of their paycheck from a benefit perspective. And then so we just added the coworker relief fund in there for them too. And I mean, even just going through open enrollment with people and kind of saying, hey, did you want to donate to the coworker relief fund? And even if they say, oh, what is that? And I explain it to them, and they're like, oh, sure, no problem. I'll take $1 out of my paycheck. And it might only be $1 out of the paycheck, but that dollar adds up, especially if they're weekly. That's $52 that goes into the fund over the course of the year. And the more people that you have make those smaller donations, it helps to grow your account. And again, it's just getting out there in front of the people during that time where they're just making that annual election. I always like to tell people, like during new hire orientation and during open enrollment, that the fund it's a Boston Beer coworker fund built by coworkers for coworkers. So I think that also provides them the reassurance that, this money that they're donating to the fund is really truly going to help out the Boston Beer family. And that just provides that whole sense of family spirit and camaraderie that we have throughout the organization.
Yeah, it's so fun to hear. And especially now, there's so much talk, at least like I listen to a lot of future of work kind of stuff, and so much talk about culture and how do you build culture, and if people aren't coming to an office, how do you feel connected? But of course, when you're talking about the manufacturing that you all are doing, right, people are coming into work and they are connected to each other, and so there is already that bond, and this is a way to make that really tangible. So I'm curious, Sara, talk to us about the fact that Ocean Spray is a farmer-led co-op, which I grew up, I mean, probably like everyone on this call, like I grew up drinking Ocean Spray products, but I had no idea it was a farmer-led co-op. So how does that factor in here in terms of how you all thought about this?
Sure. So farmer-led co-ops place tremendous value on supporting communities. And employer relief is an important part of our company culture. Keri did mention that we have a company culture of giving and caring. And so offering an employer relief fund just exhibits our loyalty to our employees, who exhibit loyalty to us every single day. And this relief fund, while it won't cover all of what someone may need, it does show that Ocean Spray is committed to helping them, supporting them and their families. So if employees are able to manage their day-to-day costs and expenses, they'll be able to look forward to plan things for the future, like a vacation, say for retirement or college, you name it. They'll be able to see the bigger picture instead of looking inward to think about this heavy financial burden that has been weighing on them. So by providing that assistance, we're helping our employees be more productive and prepared without the weight of those circumstances. And in a way, we're helping our employees understand it's also okay to ask for help. And then having Canary as our partner makes this easy as we remove ourselves from the equation and we provide the resource in a seamless way for them to receive those funds.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you're bringing this idea of additional bandwidth. And for folks who are paying attention to Q&A, you'll see that one of my colleagues, Casey, put in a test question, because since I haven't seen any questions come across, I wondered, like, is our platform set up for questions? And I had been watching the chat. So I just want to encourage folks, if you have a question, please do put it into the Q&A within the Zoom, and we're happy to make sure that those get answered. But I really like the idea that people just have more bandwidth is one that's come up really strongly in behavioral science research around, like, the idea that when you're financially stressed, you just actually, like, there's sort of some crazy research where some researchers looked at if people are financially stressed and then they do a basic cognitive test, like basic math skills, they do worse. Like the people who are primed for stress do worse on, like, very basic intellectual problems. And so I think you know intuitively that when you're stressed, you're just not thinking as clearly, you're not doing your best work. That's true just in general in life. But it's fun when that's confirmed by real researchers at places like Harvard and MIT. So Keri, one additional thing we have talked about that I'd love to hear more about is how this fits into the full set of benefits, right? So we don't think at Canary, for example, that if you launch an emergency relief fund, that's the end to all the financial ills that your staff members may ever experience, right? There's just too much diversity in people's needs, too much. Lives are just financially pretty complicated, right? So how have you thought about the combination of offerings, both voluntary and involuntary, and the way this fits in?
Yeah, so at Ocean Spray, we always do our due diligence. We make sure we're soliciting feedback from our organization, to ensure we're meeting those needs of our diverse workforce, hourly, salary, plant, corporate folks. So to help understand where the needs are, we push out engagement surveys. We do benefit surveys every couple of years. We conduct focus groups. And we also heavily rely on our HR business partners, as well as our HR managers and HR generalists out in the plants, because they're really our boots on the ground as it relates to hearing directly from team members what they're feeling and thinking. And they build that rapport and that circle of trust. So we also participate in benchmarking surveys as well, and we're always reading them to make sure, are the benefits that we're offering, voluntary or not, are they competitive? Are they filling the needs of our workforce? Where are the gaps? Where can we amp it up? What are we offering that really makes a difference in team members' lives? So we also rely on our benefit consultants to make sure that we are remaining competitive, and they have insights to all the new and fresh ideas and benefits that are out there, and providing us with that advice as well. So we lean on them for that as well. And at Ocean Spray, like I mentioned at the top of the call, we have so many awesome benefits, ranging from $0 mental health co-payments, telemedicine. We work with an EAP that offers, therapy sessions, transgender benefits, fertility, maternity, tuition reimbursement on the financial side, financial consultations with our 401k plan administrator. So we're always trying to look across the board and make sure we have something for everybody. And we also have really cool on-site perks as well, like on-site eye exams, the matching gift program, like I mentioned earlier, volunteering, backup childcare, chair massages. So long story short, we do rely on, those surveys, the engagement pulse surveys that we do, having open lines of communication with our HR partners across the organization, because like I said, they're the ones that are really hearing more often from our team members. So we always keep that conversation flowing and adjust as necessary, and dive deep into different areas that we need to focus on, as an example.
That's really great. Like I hear that list of things that you're offering, and I'm so impressed, not only that your company is doing that, but also just continually impressed by how much HR leaders have to balance, right? Like you all have to really maintain a wide knowledge base, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you folks for asking some questions. We got a few into the chat and these few as the Q&A. And it reminds me that maybe we gloss over some, some detail, but big picture, the way this works, the way an emergency fund works is that there has to have been an event, like the person has to have had a crisis of some kind. And that crisis has to be causing a financial hardship, which we define as they're not able to pay for basic living expenses. So that's the big picture guidelines. So Jill, thank you for asking that question. And then within that, there's some variation that companies make choices about, right? So what is the maximum size of the grant that you're going to offer, which is another question we got into the chat. That can be varied based on the company's budget. And how broad of a list of events are you going to allow to be eligible? How often can an individual be eligible? Those are choices that we work with companies to figure out. And like any other organization who's working with multiple companies, we try and benchmark and help you understand how what you're choosing connects in with what we're seeing other people experience. So I hope that gives people sort of, as we're closing out, like a grounding in, well, what's the part that we would do as a third party, and what will you still be responsible for internally? You'll still be responsible for figuring out budget, and that's a big one. Anyways, so as we close, I'm going to ask each of our three amazing panelists, I'm going to say thank you so much, but also as we close, if you have one sentence of advice for folks who are on this call that you'd leave them with, what's your last word to them about how they could think about taking this on?
I would say to strongly consider an employer relief fund, because like Rachel said, you can really customize it to what your needs are. It's not one size fits all. Ocean Spray went into it with a very particular budget in mind. And then as time went on, like the max limit of the grant that grantees could receive, we had a certain number, and then we ended up increasing it, So long story short, it's a great benefit for pretty small dollars, and the impact is obviously amazing. Team members really appreciate it when they find themselves in an unfortunate situation needing financial assistance. So I would say consider this.
Thank you so much. And Tara, I'm going to give you the last word as we say goodbye in a moment.
Sure. Yeah, I think I would just piggyback off of what Keri said and, just kind of take the leap and check it out. It's a very easy program to administer. It can take headaches, off of your team as an administrator, but then also take the headaches away from the coworkers that are participating in the program. And I think it's a win-win on both sides. So I would agree, kind of jump in, check it out, and see how it fits into your organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sara, Tara, Keri. I really appreciate this, and everyone who joined. Don't hesitate to follow up with us. We would be delighted to have this conversation to understand how this could be useful for you. Thank you all so much. Have a really great rest of your day.